Yes, we're all experts at the beginning of the college football season, right? Well, it is one of the most exciting times, though, of the year. That is the beginning of the season where everybody starts at status quo, and then we'll find out come December and January who the last teams and eventually last team is that's standing. It is my annual college football playoff prediction show. At the end, I will have my final 4 teams I think will be a part of that CFP. The 2 teams that I think also that will be meeting for the national championship game, which takes place this season on January 7th, 2019 at Santa Clara, California, home of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, you might have been watching my team-by-team college football previews. If so, thank you. And you might be saying, man, that's quite a few previews you've been doing. Well, that's because I've never done as many previews as I'm doing this year. I've been doing this since 2009. So far, I've amassed 60 team-by-team previews, and most likely I've covered your favorite school. Done 57 schools so far from the Power 5 conferences, Notre Dame, as well as a couple of requests from Group of 5 conferences like Connecticut, as well as Charlotte. I still, by the way, have a few more previews to go, so just because I've done this preview doesn't mean I'll stop doing the other 5 team-by-team previews, which will cover the rest of the Coastal Division, North Carolina, Duke, as well as Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech. I'll have those shows on soon. And, of course, I've been doing my team-by-team previews since June. You might be saying, well, why is it taking so long to do all these previews? And, by the way, the college football season for most of the teams is just around the corner. Well, good question. Well, unexpected things have happened to yours truly, and if you've ever had tooth pain, yeah, you know what that's like. You cannot think, you cannot sleep, you can't eat what you want, and you can't function normally. And that's what happened to me in late August, and that's why I had to put a hold on these shows for a few days. And yes, I did go to the dentist, and yes, I did get one of my back teeth extracted, and now I'm slowly but surely getting back to normal. But that's a big reason why I've been cutting it close as far as getting the remainder of my team-by-team previews. So thank you for your patience, first of all. Thank you for your big-time patience. And like I said, those other 5 previews, all from the Coastal Division of the ACC, I will have them on shortly. But like I said, tooth pain, it's a witch. It's an absolute witch. Well, let's talk about bigger and better things. Let's waste one more time before we get into my college football playoff Final 4. As you might know, by watching my team-by-team previews, I have not necessarily been giving conference prediction winners, but division prediction winners. We're going to begin in the Big Ten, where I picked Wisconsin from the West to face Ohio State from the East. When I picked Ohio State from the East, this was before, of course, the Zach Smith firing, the former assistant head coach. This was before the Urban Meyer suspension. Now, I've already made my pick for Ohio State, so I can't change it now. But I am going to pick Wisconsin to win that game. I think that they will get revenge. I think their defense will be too much, and I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be too much. I think Ohio State will still win the East, but it won't be easy. And I do think the Urban Meyer controversy is going to be a distraction all season long, even though I know they get him back come game number 4. Wisconsin, I'm going to pick them to win the Big Ten. But their schedule, if you've seen it, has a lot of tough road games, and I think they'll lose at least 2 of them, and no 2-loss team has ever went to the college football playoffs. So I think Wisconsin gets a major bowl bid, but not the Final 4. Let's go now to the ACC, where Miami and Clemson, part number 2. I expect it to be a closer game this time. I think Miami's defense will make things interesting. The problem is I don't trust Miami right now at the quarterback spot, especially with Malik Rozier. I think Clemson's defense will dictate the pace. And I do think that the Clemson Tigers, once again, will win the ACC and will, for the 4th straight year, get to the college football playoff. Now let's look at the Pac-12, USC. I think they will get back to the Pac-12 championship game. I think they'll win the East, but they will not have enough offense against a veteran Washington defensive group. And plus, with Walker back at quarterback, Washington will be very experienced at that position. Chris Peterson's one hell of a coach. We saw it at Boise. We're seeing it now in Seattle. Washington, I think, wins the Pac-12, and I think they get one of those 4 college football playoff spots for the second time in the past 3 seasons. And let's take a look at the Big 12. I have a rematch between Oklahoma and T.C.U. I think the Sooners will win the regular season. I think T.C.U. finishes second. In fact, if you've watched my shows, you know I've got T.C.U. picked to upset Oklahoma. I think TCU wins the battle when it comes to the regular season. But the Sooners, when it comes to the Big 12 championship game, when it comes to Big 12 championships, they know how to answer the call. They've proven that since the Bob Stoops era. And last year, it was confirmed with Lincoln Riley and the group. The Sooners may not have Baker Mayfield, but they still have enough offensive firepower. I think the Sooners get revenge on TCU from what I'm predicting will be a regular season loss. But I think OU gets the last laugh. And I think they beat TCU in the Big 12 championship game in Arlington. And I've got Oklahoma picked to go to the college football playoff. And then the SEC, Alabama and Georgia, or the Boston equivalent of Ali versus Frazier. Two powerhouse programs. Of course, last year we were treated to a dandy in the national championship game. The Bama win in overtime. Georgia, again, will be very tough. I still think their ground game is going to be solid, but not quite what it was last year. In the meantime, Bama, talented in every department, even in inexperienced departments, they still have the personnel to get the job done, and they have something that no other college football team has, Nick Saban. And that alone makes Alabama a threat to win every time they come onto the field. I look for Bama and Georgia to once again put on a good game from the same place that they played the national championship game from last year. That's Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And I look for Alabama once again to get the edge over Georgia. I've got Bama by a touchdown, and I got Bama picked not only to go to the college football playoff, but to be the #1 seed in the Final Four. So the way it breaks down, December 29th, you're going to have the semifinals. Okay, you'll have the Orange Bowl in Miami, and you'll have the Cotton Bowl in Arlington. Those will be the two games that will feature the college football playoff. We're going to break down the #2 versus #3, in my opinion. I think it'll be #2 Clemson versus #3 Oklahoma in Arlington, where the Sooners should benefit from only having to travel 3 hours from Norman to Arlington. That'll help, but to beat Clemson, you're going to have to attack them, and Clemson's got the best defensive line in the country. They've got athletes. They got Dabo Swinney. The Sooners will fight like crazy, but they have a bad history against Clemson, and unfortunately, I don't think that will change. I think Clemson beats Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl, and they'll make it to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara for the January 7th National Championship game. The other semifinal, we mentioned earlier, it will be at the Orange Bowl in Miami, Washington against Alabama, and I think this will be a low-scoring game, but as good as Washington is on defense, Bama, they're even better on defense, and again, the coaching matchup, I like Saban over Peterson. I look for Bama to do what they did 2 years ago to the Huskies, and that is beat them in a game that won't feature a lot of points, but it will feature a Bama victory. And that leads us to the national championship game. I'm predicting it's going to be Clemson and Bama for the 4th straight year in the college football playoff and for the 3rd time for the college football playoff national championship game. To be played January 7th at Santa Clara, California. Again, don't expect very many points in this game. I know they've had some high-scoring contests in the past. Last year wasn't, and I know Bama, they had the edge by pulling away in the second half. I'm going to go with Clemson in this game. 2 reasons why. One, it's a veteran defensive line, and you have to have that to try to control the game and neutralize Alabama's fine offense. #2, I think the quarterback play is going to make the difference. Not, though, with Kelly Bryant. It's going to be with Trevor Lawrence, the freshman that people are going to be talking about, especially as the season goes along. I think he'll give them that downfield throwing presence that Clemson surely will need in a game like this, something they didn't have last year against Bama. I think it will be 2-2 between these two teams the last 4 college football playoffs, and I've got Clemson beating Alabama for the national championship. I'm going to go a little bit against the grain on this one. Well, that's my selection. What were yours? Just a reminder, yes, I will have my Oklahoma weekly matchup show. It'll be later in the week, probably Thursday. Of course, the Sooners opening up the season against Florida Atlantic. And I will have my 3 picks as well, probably coming up on Friday. And just a reminder, I've not forgotten about the other 5 Power 5 schools I have yet to get previews for: Virginia, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, as well as Duke and North Carolina. I'll have those previews throughout the week. And that will wrap up my previews, which, by the way, for team-by-team wise, it'll go up to 65. Yeah, that's quite a few previews, but it's been fun doing them, and thanks, everybody, for your comments, and subscribe, please, if you haven't already done so. College football season, yeah, we can finally stop waiting. It's here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.